Hi guys, Samantha from Jessama Tutorials here, and today I'm going to be showing you a cool technique using liquid clay to create a crackle. And so we're going to be doing two styles in this tutorial, so I'm going to be starting with the more organic one to start with. So what you're going to need first off is a stamp, and I'm going to be using this cog stamp that I have. I'm not sure if you can see it very well, but you'll see it once we press it into the clay. And you're going to be needing some white clay and some pastels. And now you can use any pastels that you want, but it just needs to be a selection of brown pastels, and any selection will work. And so what you want to do is you want to take your clay, which should be rolled out on your thickest setting, about 2 millimeters for me. And then what you want to do is you want to take your pastel, and you could use mica powder, but I think the pastels works better because it gives a much more organic effect. And just scrape them on, like so. And any pastels will work. You could even try this technique using different colour pastels. Okay, and then use your finger to just kind of tap that down, and then I'm going to flip it up, push back together, and this time I'm only going to use the somewhat lighter versions of the pastels. I'm not going to use that really dark brown. Put the pastels to the side, and then again just kind of pat the pastels down and then kind of move them around. It doesn't have to be smooth, just kind of make sure that they're stuck on there. Okay, and then grab these all, kind of twist them together like so, into just one big ball like this, and just squish it together because the pastels is going to repel the clay. It's not going to stick together like it usually would. So just make sure it's one big lump like so, and then roll it out like so. And I'm going to just use my blade to quickly chop down the middle. And then we're going to top that on top of each other, like so. Excuse me, that was my oven going off. Okay, we're picking up all of those pastels, and we're just kind of mixing it all together randomly. Now we don't want to mix it up too much, that should be enough. And now I'm going to twist it, and it's going to create this kind of light wood grain effect. Which is what I am going for. Okay, and then once you've stretched it out, bring it back in, like so, and just keep rolling it to keep it from getting kinks in it. There we are, and then choose the side that you somewhat like the best, and I think I like here the best, and flatten out that side. And I'm just going to use my fingers first and just feel for air bubbles, and if there are any, just slice in and then gently tap it out. and then just use your roller to start stretching it out. We don't want to stretch this out too much because we want it to still be fairly thick because we're going to cut our beads out from this. But I just wanted to flatten it enough that it can now go through our pasta machine on the thicker setting. And I've actually ended up liking this side more. And just take out anything like this little piece of pastel there. Okay. Now I'll pop that through my pasta machine on my thickest setting. Okay, then I'm going to just take it down 2 more settings to about 1 millimeter thick so that it is nice and even. Now, you have an option between just leaving it like this, or you could take some 99% alcohol and just give a gentle rub on some areas to highlight, to take away a little bit of the pastel. So this side I definitely like the best, it's more marbled. So on this side I just want to show you what that's going to look like. So you'll just grab some 99% alcohol and a wet wipe or tissue will work. I'm just going to lightly spray the surface, and then I'm just going to use my wet wipe to run over the surface, and that will just remove most of our surface pastel and will give a cleaner look. And this is completely up to you. You can see just around the edges here that we've got some pastels left still. And so this is an alternative if you had a little bit too much pastels, which will still give a really nice wood grain effect, but it will leave it looking a little bit cleaner. Okay, and at the same time you can just use that to quickly clean up the pastel that was sitting on your tile. So let's see the 2 pieces. This side, which is quite a bit brighter, or we have this side. And so personally I like this side because it's a lot browner and I like that quite a bit, but this side is definitely brighter. So I want to just brighten this side up just a little bit. So I'm going to take my wet wipe, but I'm not going to spray the alcohol. I'm just gently going to rub. And that will clean it up a little bit, but it's not going to remove all of the pastel, which is something I like. But I did want to brighten it up a bit. Okay. And so again, it's completely up to you and the effect that you want. So there we are. That side is now a little bit brighter, but this side you can still see is a lot cleaner. So I'm going to pop that off to the side for the moment. And we'll bring over our texture stamp. And this is a silicone cog stamp that I sell on my Etsy shop, Jessama Design, and there will be a link to it in the description below. And so what you're going to want to use is some liquid clay. And what we're going to do with that liquid clay is we're just going to squeeze it out onto our tile. You can squeeze it into a little bowl if you wanted to. But squeeze out quite a bit, and this is Kato translucent liquid clay. So I'll just give you a good look at the bottle. And then you're either going to want to use alcohol ink, but sometimes the alcohol inks can separate. So I want to use a denim coloured pastel, like a dark blue. And I want to infuse quite a bit of that into the liquid clay. And you'll see where the texture stamp comes in just a moment. So just scrape quite a bit. Then grab your liquid clay again and pop that over the top. And that will just help a little bit with mixing it in. And then just use a skewer to gently mix that in, and try to not spread out the liquid clay too much, at the same time getting rid of all of those lumps. And this way the liquid clay won't be translucent anymore, it will have that nice grainy denim effect to it, which is quite nice. and that will tie into another piece of our project in just a little while. But just make sure that you get rid of pretty much all of this grainy denim bits. You're not going to get rid of all of it, you're going to have some little grainy bits, which is fine, but the big clumps you don't want. You want it to be a nice, even, consistent colour. Okay, and that's about done. You can see that didn't take too long, and it's a really nice effect, but it's still quite organic. Okay, and then is when your stamp will come in, and this bit can get a little messy, but you want to just kind of drench your stamp in the liquid clay. So I might actually use a brush for this. Okay, and it's important to note that for this technique you have to use a silicone stamp. I sell polymer clay stamps as well, but they won't work for this technique because the silicone first off has to be heat resistant, and it also has to be flexible. So a rubber stamp will work, like Helen Braille's stamps, Lisa Pavelka's stamps, and Christy Friesen stamps. Those will also work. Melanie Muir ones will work as well because they're made out of photopolymer. So photopolymer, rubber, or silicone will work. Just something that is hard, like something that's made out of metal or polymer clay, that's not going to work so well for this technique. Okay, and I might need to mix up a little bit more liquid clay because I want to fill this entire stamp with the liquid clay. And you don't want to just paint it on, you want to fill in these grooves, so you need a fair amount of liquid clay. Okay, so now it is full of liquid clay. So now you're going to just take a card of some sort, something hard, and you're just going to scrape that liquid clay off and put it onto a cloth or something like that, out of the way. And it is important to scrape away all of the liquid clay that isn't in the indents. And just keep in mind that this is a pretty messy process, but it's easy to clean up, so don't worry about it. But you want it clean. You need to scrape away all of that excess liquid clay. Be gentle though, because you can go a little too deep into the texture. Like over here I went a little bit deep, and so I need to just replace some of that liquid clay. And so this can be a little bit time consuming, but again the effect from it is really nice. So I'll just continue cleaning and cleaning until I've got rid of all of my excess liquid clay. Okay, and here's how it is looking so far. Now to get rid of the tiny little dregs left, take your 99% alcohol and just give it a light spray, and then I gently want to sop up those little bits. And what I'm going to be trying to do is curing the top of the liquid clay slightly so that it's not going to be all drippy and stuff. So I'll spray again, and this time just blow to get it to dry. And you might want to do that a few times, and then the top of the liquid clay will have cured a little bit, and then you'll be able to get rid of all of these tiny little bits much more easily. Okay, so it's dry. Now let's give this another shot. Okay. And so you still got to be careful, but it is going to come out quite a bit cleaner. Now keep in mind, some stamps are a little bit easier than others. The stamps that have wide open patterns are definitely easier for this. So this stamp is not the easiest and wouldn't be the first to try. I'll be demonstrating a very similar project using the same technique but with a different stamp in a later part in the video. But yeah, they are definitely easier stamps that have less texture to them, and those are definitely easier to start with. Okay, so I think that's probably as clean as I'm going to get it. So now what you want to do is you want to grab your heat gun. Now the goal is to cure this just enough that it is set inside here, so the liquid clay is hard, but you don't want to be curing it so that it is properly cured. You want it to be able to snap. So I'm going to set my heat gun to a medium temperature. So let me bring that up so you can see, actually, or other way around so you can see it properly. Here is the brand I'm using, and here you can see that I have a dial, so this is where I am setting it. Not too hot, but not too cool, so that it's just going to cure enough. And you need a heat gun for this. The oven isn't really going to do too good of a job. And then I'm going to be having it on a low wind speed, which will be the number 1, because if you put on a number 2, which is over there, it's going to be too high and it's going to blow the liquid clay away. So just cure it like so. Should be fairly easy. And just move your heat gun around like so. And this prevents the liquid clay from coming out of the texture. And so when it starts to cure, you should be able to see that it will start to darken. Like here it's curing very slightly, but over here you can see that it is still raw. Now I'm going to be doing, I'm not going to switch the camera off, I'm going to keep it on for the entire time that I am curing this so you can see exactly how long it takes. And then once you have cured the top, I'm just going to gently check how cured it is. I want to see how hard it is. Okay, I want to cure just a little bit more around here, and then we're going to flip the stamp. Now we're going to quickly flip and we're going to cure from the bottom. Now don't mind this, I have taken one of the dud stamps as my own, but your stamp, if you bought it, would be nice and smooth on the back. And we're going to cure from the back side. I'm going to flip again, and this should be cured, so just gently go around and check, and if you still see that that you can easily press on it, it's not completely cured. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to raise the temperature just a touch so you can see, and I'm going to cure it a little bit more. Flip and do on the back. And then you're going to need to let this cool, because the liquid clay is not going to appear hard until it has cooled. So some areas might still be liquid after that, so once this is cooled, and it's going to sit in this mold for quite a little while. Once that's cooled, then we can move on to the next step. So just quickly clean up your tile, and I'm using a ceramic tile. Okay, and so it is cool now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring over our clay here, and this should fit. Yes, it will. And what we're going to do is we want to make sure that this sticks. So I'm going to grab a little bit of translucent liquid clay. And I don't want to put on that one because that will rub up the pastels. And I want to just put a little bit along here. We'll just use the card to quickly scrape that across the surface. And we only want a little bit. So just use a very small amount of translucent liquid clay for this. And this is going to help our liquid clay stick to our polymer clay. And so what we're doing essentially is a more complicated version of a Sutton Slice. Okay, there we are, and then just grab this to scrape away any excess. There we are. Okay, and then grab your polymer clay and this, and then press. And you want to press hard on this because you want it to bond to the clay. And then what I like to do is I would actually like to leave this for maybe 5 minutes. I'll press on the top, and the nice thing about having a translucent stamp like this is you can actually see the clay coming away from the stamp here. So you can see the areas where it's coming away, it will start to go slightly translucent. So there I'm working away that cog, you can see it's starting to go translucent. So I'll just work at it and doing that, because that means that it's coming away from the stamp, which is exactly what you want. So I'll just do that, and then if I have any troublesome pieces that aren't doing that, then I'll probably leave it for around 5 minutes just to get that raw liquid clay that we have to stick to that polymer clay. But it looks like it's coming out just fine, so I don't think I'm going to need to do that. Okay. Just making sure that it's all stuck down. Okay, so it should be able to come out now. So I'm very carefully gonna peel it up. You want to be careful because you want it all to come up. There we go. You can see that we have a few little bits in there, but you can easily get that out later with just a coarse brush. Okay. And now of course you can see it, this is just a slight background texture in this one. And so I'm just going to trim this away because the cured liquid clay means that it's not really suitable for reuse when it comes to the clay. So just trim away the areas that don't have the cured liquid clay. So that's not a problem. And then just areas that are kind of raised up, either blow on it to get rid of it, or just gently tap it down. And now what I want to do is I want to leave this for just a little while so that that liquid clay can start to seep into that polymer clay, because as you can see here it's still a little bit shiny, which is not what I want. So in the meantime we're going to work on the other element to our project. So I'll pop that off to the side. And I'm going to bring over our mixed up colour, which is 1 part ecru to 2 parts white. And what we want to do with that is I've rolled that through my thickest setting on my pasta machine, which is about 2 millimeters thick. And you have an option between using alcohol ink or pastel, but for this I want to use pastels. And so I'm using the exact same colour as I did with the other one, which is this kind of denim colour. And I've just got that on, and then I want to smooth the layer over so that it's just pure dark denim. And then once this has been baked, you will see exactly what I want to do with it. Essentially what I want to do with it is I want to bake it, make sure that that pastel's nice and stuck on, and then once I've got it cut out and baked, we will take some sandpaper and we're going to scratch it in one direction and in the other direction to create a sort of faux denim effect. But it needs to be like this nice dark denim colour. So that's good for now. Now clean up your hands and your tile, and then we can move on to crackling our liquid clay. Okay, so my hands and tile are clean, and so now we're going to grab this, and I'm just going to give it a quick spray with the 99% alcohol to quickly cure the top of that liquid clay. That might still be a little bit on the sticky side, because the nice thing about the alcohol is that it actually dries out a piece. And then I'll just dab that away, and then just gently blow to get rid of the rest of the alcohol. Okay, and then you will need a piece of printing paper to go over the top of this, and then just press. And the reason I'm using printing paper is because I don't want it to stick to my hands. And actually, a piece of deli paper would probably work much better. Here we are, because it's translucent. Okay, and I'm just pressing to start with to get it pressed onto and into the clay. And because this liquid clay is partially cured, it should start to crackle. So you can see already that we're starting to get some nice cracks forming. Then I'm going to move on to using my roller, and now I'm just essentially rolling over the surface. I'm not pressing all that hard, because I want to be careful at this point. Okay, and you can see we're getting a really cool organic crackled effect. Okay, and then once you're never going to get it completely flat, so you're never going to get to a point where if you sanded it, it would look really shiny. But what we want at the moment is that kind of cracked appearance. So you can go and crack that liquid clay a little bit more if you wanted to. And I'm just going and stretching it a bit. I don't want to stretch it so much that the actual cogs disappear. Just want to crack it enough that it's going to have that really nice, interesting look. And you can see that because of the scratches that I have in the texture stamp, you've got this really interesting scratching in the back, which is really nice, and that's all crackled. And then you've got this kind of opposite wood grain effect in the back. So that is our first veneer done, and this is our second veneer. So while these are done, we are going to now move on to the second one for our second version of this project. And what we're going to be doing is, instead of the cog stamp, we are going to be using Helen Braille's, let's see which one's this one, Reading Between the Lines. And this one's going to be a little bit easier with the liquid clay, because what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using black Kato liquid clay, so you don't have to go and mix it. So what you'll do is you'll just grab that liquid clay, and if it's a new bottle, you'll need to just pierce the top like so, and then the liquid clay should come out pretty easily. And just pour your liquid clay over the surface. And you don't have to put too much on, but you don't want to put too little that it makes your life difficult. Okay, and then I'll just use the card to move everything around. And you can get in with your fingers, it's not going to hurt, it will probably help quite a bit if you're having a little bit of trouble getting the liquid clay into all those nooks and crannies. And also your card's going to pick up a little bit of liquid clay, so if it ends up picking up too much, you can just use your blade to gently scrape it off back onto your texture. And if you are having trouble, you can always just add a little bit more liquid clay into the areas where you feel like you're not getting any. Okay, and this is one of those stamps that is probably best if you're just starting this technique, because it's very straightforward, it's got a nice straight easy pattern to work with, and it's just a little bit easier than the other one, and it will come out looking cleaner as well. So if you're looking for a non-organic look, this one's probably a better choice for you, but it will work with any texture stamp so long as it is heat resistant, and so long as it is flexible. Okay, and now what I'm going to do, now that I've got everything into the pores of the texture, is I'm actually going to scrape away that surface liquid clay. And again, it is a bit of a messy process. But again, liquid clay is always messy. Okay, I'll just continue scraping just like before to get rid of all of that surface liquid clay, because the cleaner it is, the better it will look in the end. And again, if you're having trouble, you can just spray the surface with some 99% alcohol, and that will harden up the liquid clay a little bit and make it a little bit easier to work with. But it's better to try and get rid of as much of it as you can before doing that. So I've got rid of pretty much all of it. So we'll just give it a quick spray, let that dry, and then I'll just get it all cleaned up. Okay, and when you're doing this, you want to be pressing hard on your texture. You want to be pressing on it, scraping off that liquid clay. So you can hear me scraping at that. And especially with this sort of stamp where you don't actually have any background texture, it is extremely important that you get it as clean as possible. Again, just like you would if it was a Sutton Slice. So if you need to go at it again with the 99% alcohol, go ahead, but just spend enough time on this stage of the technique to get it clean, because the rest relies on it. Okay, and that should be clean enough. Now also just go and clean up any excess clay that you might have along the edges. You don't have to be pedantic about it, but it's just best to clean up any big pieces that you might have just sitting there. And now remember, you can always wash these textures in some water, brush off anything with brushes once you're done with this, so don't worry about it ruining your texture, it won't. Then again, we will cure with our heat gun. And now it's quite difficult with black to tell when it is cured, so what I like to do is I like to cure it for maybe less than a minute, and then I'll go in with my blade and I'll just test some areas to see how cured it is. So I can see at the top is somewhat cured, but not completely, so it needs to be cured a little bit longer on the front here. I'm gonna go and test again. Okay, and I think this front part is cured enough. Okay, so I'm just gonna flip to the back side, because if you only cure on the front, you have the risk of having the parts that are sitting deep in the texture not being cured when you put it on your polymer clay, and that can be a disaster. And that should be enough to have cured this to the degree that I want it. So now you can dip this, and again previously with this one, you can go and dip your texture stamps into some water to cool them off quicker if you want, which is what I'm going to go and do. So now that it is cool, I'm going to just go with my tissue blade, and I'm very carefully going to just scrape along the surface. And the reason I'm being so careful with this is because I'm putting this on a white background, and so if any of the liquid clay that isn't in the textures gets onto the white, it's going to make my effect less effective. So you can go with your tissue blade now and do this. Just be careful that you don't cut into the texture, just scrape and it should be just fine. And you can see all of that dried liquid clay that we're getting off. Okay, and that will leave us with a much cleaner effect. So now I'm just going to go and blow and scrape that away. And you can even go with a little wet wipe and just make sure that you got rid of most of it. There we go. And I will just pop that off to the side for just a moment really. And I'll bring over a sheet of white that has been rolled out on my thickest setting, 2mm again. And what I'm going to do is, instead of doing it the other way around, like last time, I think I'm going to probably do it with the clay sitting in the stamp. And now when you do this, you want to use some cornstarch on the back. And the reason for this is because you don't want your hand sticking to the polymer clay. So just give it a light dust. And then press. You want to be pressing hard on your clay. And so I'm going to actually stand up and do this. And you might have noticed this time that I didn't use liquid clay. So this time I want to see if I can get this to stick without using liquid clay. Because it's always nicer if you can get it to do it without liquid clay, especially when you're working on a white background, because the liquid clay can show up on that. So this time I'm not using liquid clay. So I'm pressing nice and hard, and you want to be using fresh clay. And some brands you might find will be a little bit harder to work with for this, like Kato or Fimo, because they're not as sticky and they don't stick to other polymer clays easily. Souffle is one that I probably wouldn't recommend using, because it just has that non-stick quality where you would probably have a lot of trouble having the liquid clay stick to it. Okay, so now I've done that, go reverse, and I'm going to press from the other side, hopefully getting it unstick from the texture. But again, this is the problem with not having a texture that has a translucent back. So if you're trying this, I would recommend a texture with a translucent back, but with a nice, even, easy texture. Okay, and that should have got it stuck on. And so now what we want to do is just start from this end, and you want to bring up your texture as hard of you want to make as hard of a fold as possible, and just peel up. and it's coming away really nicely. And you can see that I didn't get rid of all of the liquid clay, and that's not a complete disaster because it's still going to look really nice. It just won't have a complete black on white effect. Okay, just blow away any of that hasn't stuck. And then again, bring over a piece of greaseproof paper, press on it with your hands first, and then possibly even smooth. Like so. Okay, and then I'm just going to gently pick this up, because we have the cornstarch on the back, it shouldn't stick. Okay, and I'm going to stretch. And I wouldn't recommend rolling this through your pasta machine because the liquid clay can lift up again. So until you've baked this, you want to be just a little careful with it because the liquid clay can unstick. But there you are. With this pattern, because it's a little bit wider and a less complicated pattern than the other one where we have a very specific image, this one you can crackle quite a bit further. Okay, and you can see some areas of the liquid clay haven't cured, so you just want to go in those areas, and you just want to be careful. You don't want to have that transfer to the rest of your sheet. Okay, I'm just flattening it one more time, and that is our second veneer, which looks really nice, and it has a light crackle to it. So I'll put that to the side. And then we're going to take that mixed up colour again, but this time what we're going to do is we're going to use some crimson and rust, and here are the two alcohol inks that I am using. Okay, and I'm going to use this nice alcohol ink applicator that I got from Linda's Art Spot. And so open your alcohol inks away from your clay because they can drop little dried bits of alcohol onto your clay. And that's always a pain, so just make sure you open them away from your clay. There we go. Okay, and then we're just going to gently drop a bit onto our applicator. And then apply it generously. And I'm probably going to want a little bit more rust in there, so I'm just going to grab the rust and add a bit. And just make sure that you've covered over that ecru sufficiently. Okay, then I'm going to take my 99% alcohol and I'm going to spray it on here. And I'm just quickly going to dab away the excess alcohol onto a wet wipe quickly. And then I'll spray it again, and I'm gonna just dab it over the surface here, and that will hopefully get some blooms going, just some light blooms. Then I'm going to take the bottle again of 99% alcohol, and I'm going to spray from a distance to get some smaller blooms, as you can see. And it's just going to be very subtle because we're going to be doing that kind of denim scratch effect on this one again, like we're going to do with the blue one, but I just wanted a slight texture to it. And so these two are going to go together, and these two are going to go together, but again it is interchangeable if you want. So you can see how these two would go quite nicely together too. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly clean up, and then we can start assembling our beads. Okay, so now I have designed my earrings as far as the design goes. So I've got this arch and a half oval, so that's going to be our one earring design, and then I have a half oval a round circle that's going to fit like that, and another circle. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have one disc here, and then this other disc is going to overlap this one, and then this is going to connect to it. So you'll see what I mean when we're done. So what we're going to start is with the red one. And now before we do anything, we want to start by making our backing. So you're going to need some white clay, which I have here, and I've got all my dirty white clay because this is what will work for it, and my leftover wood grain. Okay, and then I'm going to slice this up very quickly, just like we did before. Essentially, I'm just going to make another wood grain, just like before, and you'll just quickly randomly slice it up, like so. Then grab your powders, pastels that is, and just sprinkle them on. And you can use any backing that you want. You can use maybe a textured backing, maybe a mica shift, but I wanted something that was going to tie in and look quite nice at the same time, because you want the back of earrings to look quite nice. So I thought this was an appropriate backing. Okay, and we're almost done, and I don't want to use too much pastel, so I'm not going to worry about covering the other side. Just going to somewhat randomly just smooth over, pick that up here, and just finish smoothing it. And these I'll just pick up. And this is a fun technique because it's so forgiving. It's really easy. Don't have to worry about anything. You can then go pick up the rest of your pastels and then just grab the lot, put them together randomly. Make sure you squish that together so it's one nice big ball, and then just roll it across the surface of your tile just to grab those excess pieces of pastel, and then just make sure that's all squished together, because again, remember that pastel doesn't like to stick to other pieces of clay. And then we'll roll it. And now we're doing this in quite a bit larger quantity than before, because we want to cover the backs of each of our 4 veneers. And again, you can do this in a different colour scheme, but I like this because it looks like faux wood. And it's a really easy way to kind of get a faux wood effect. But this one I want to tidy up on the back. Just going to twist it. The tighter the twists, the more interesting it will look once I've cleaned it up. Okay. And I'm just going to squish this together. This will create a more gnarly effect, whereas with the other one I went for a little bit more of a straight sort of wood grain effect. This one I'm going for a much more gnarly effect, where you have almost like knots in the wood. Okay, there we go. Then just gently press it all together so it's one piece of clay with no little ripply bits in it. So it's in a nice kind of rectangular shape. Okay. Then flatten it out. That pattern looks really nice. Okay, and I'll just stretch it a bit by hand because that can also kind of marble it up a bit. And then I'm gonna run that through my pasta machine on the thickest setting. so. And here is what we have. And now this isn't going to fit everything, and I don't need it to be that thick, so I'm going to take it down to a 1mm thick setting, which is my 4th setting on my pasta machine. There we are. So that's thinned out quite a bit, and I like this side the best. So I'll just grab a wet wipe and that 99% alcohol. Give this a quick spray, and then just wipe away the dirt. And you could of course sand this away later, but this will just save your sandpaper from getting extra dirt in it, because I use polishing papers and they can get clogged up quite easily, so if I can get rid of excess dirt and things like that before I bake, I like to do that. And by the way, 99% alcohol is a great way to remove stains, so long as it's not something like alcohol inks. It also works to remove dust and lint and cat hair. Like me, I have a cat that leaves a lot of cat hair everywhere, and so if you're looking for something that's pretty good at cleaning up white clay, 99% alcohol is what you will want to get. Okay, and that should do it. Just do one more and that should be all I need. And each pass whitens it up even more. But I don't want to overdo it. Okay, and then just take that opportunity to quickly wipe up the excess pastels on your tile. Lift that up, clean it up, and here is what it looks like. So now I'm just going to flip that, and I'm going to pop each of my veneers on here. And I'm not going to need all of this, so let me just... Okay. There we go. That should stick, though this one we actually put some cornstarch on the back, so I'm just going to quickly wet that with a bit of that 99% alcohol. I'm just quickly wiping that off, and that will help it stick, because that will get rid of that cornstarch. There we go, and that should stick a bit better. Right, then we've got our other little pieces. And if it's not fitting perfectly, you can always just give it a little stretch. Polymer clay is very forgiving as far as that goes. You can always give it a little stretch so that it fits a bit better. Okay, and then just give it a good press down to make sure that it is all stuck together. And then I'll just quickly use my craft knife to just separate these pieces. There we go. I'll just pop these off to the side until I am ready to cut them out. And so we will start with this one. I'm just going to remove this excess little bit. Okay. And so what I like to do whenever I'm cutting something else out and I want a nice flat top is I will place that face side down, and I'll just quickly clean that up. I had a little pastel on that. I'll place it face side down onto a piece of paper, and I will then use my cutters. And I'm going to be using the arch for this. Now let me get a good idea of where I want to cut. And I think I want to take a cut here and probably here. Though this end is also quite nice. I think I like this end better. So I'll take a cut here, press in, and it should come out nice and clean. Now this is an especially good tip for when you're working with clay that has been crackled, because it can be a little difficult to cut, especially if you're working with plastic, but if you do it face down, it's a lot easier and it comes out a lot cleaner. And now because we are working on paper, the clay is going to stick in the cutter, and so long as you're not working with teeny tiny cutters, that should be just fine. And just make sure that you press down nice and hard, because we are working with partially cured clay, and so to prevent any problems, just press down nice and firmly. And you still are going to have some tears, like there was a little tear there where it didn't come away correctly, but that's fine. Okay, and I could cut out some more earrings, but I'll probably do that in a little while. So now I'm just going to quickly get rid of this as much as I can, and then I'm going to move on to the next piece, which is this one. And I'm just going to quickly trim up around the edges so that I can see what I'm working with, because I'm going to be cutting this face down as well. So I want a nice, perfectly flat front. And I don't want any dome, even if it's a slight dome, which any cutter will give you. And that's a nice attribute to have on the back. And now what I want to do is, I don't want to use my arch, I want to be using my little semi-oval. And I want to use this in the best way possible, because if I use it this way around, I'll probably have a little bit more trouble cutting out another one here, so I'm going to use it this way around. And I'm going to cut and lift. I should be able to press this out of the cutter nice and easily. Put that off to the side. And can I get another one here? Yes, there we go. And I should be able to press this out easily too. There we go. And now don't worry if you get a little bit of that pastel on the back, we'll be able to sand that off very easily later. Okay, put this to the side. Again, I'm just going to quickly wipe up what I can. I'll just use my wet wipe that time around. Okay, and we'll repeat with this one. And I think I want to aim for around here. And I want to be taking a cut out with this nice large semi-oval. And again, we want to press nice and hard because we're working with that cured liquid clay. There you go, and that comes out nice and clean. And let's see where else, where do I want to take another cut? I want to take a cut around here. Press and lift. There we go. And you can see you get a very slight dome on the edge of the back, but which I don't want on the front, but it looks really nice from the front. Okay, and you can see at the edges just need a slight smoothing. Now just put that to the side again. And again, I'll just quickly brush off whatever needs to be brushed off. And this one, I need to give it a trim quickly, just to make sure that I'm getting what I need to get. So the whole process is fairly easy, but the results look really cool. Okay, and for this one, I will be taking my largest circle, and I want to be cutting out a piece for each earring. Yeah. Okay, and then I just want to bring this one back again because I want my smallest circle. Let's cut that out. Okay. Now let me just quickly show you what those earrings are going to look like. So for this one, just go around the edge gently and just smooth, because you might have some little lines on there. And again, we are going to be doing some sanding, but the more you do before it is baked, the easier your life will be. So just quickly smooth those edges. Do the same here, and just remove any little fragments that might be hanging around on your piece, because those can get stuck during the baking process because polymer clay bonds to polymer clay. There we go. And these pieces are going to sit up here like this, but they're going to be all scratched up, so that's going to look quite nice. Okay, and that's our one earring pair. And our other one, we're going to have these semicircles on the bottom. And again, just quickly go around and smooth with your finger. Doesn't take too long. Don't need to press really hard. It just takes the edge off of it so that sanding requires a lot less time and energy. And the back I'm going to gently press onto a piece of paper in a minute before I bake. And then we're going to have this sitting at the top, and this one also. Gently rotate around and just smooth. Yeah. Okay, and this one too, give it a slight smooth. And there you can see it, there's a little piece there that needs to come away. There we go. And then these ones are just going to kind of sit on the front here, like that. Maybe a little further on, there we go. And then these are going to link up, but these need to be scratched first. So I'll just sit like that. And I'm going to bond this onto this once I have done a little bit of sanding and once I've scratched these up. So we're going to bond these two together with liquid clay once they have been baked separately. Because it's always better to bake your elements separately, and then it will give you some more leeway when it comes to attaching them, because the polymer clay sticks to raw polymer clay, and so it can cause trouble when you're trying to attach pieces together. Okay, so I'm just going to bring over another piece of plain printing paper, and I'm just going to pop this on. I'm going to use another piece of printing paper I've just had lying on the side. I'm just pressing on the back of these to get it to just sit nicely on that piece of paper, which will smooth off the end. I'm not pressing hard, because if you press hard you will distort your shape a bit. Just press lightly, just to get it to sit nicely on your piece of paper, and it will flatten it out too. Okay. And if you see any mistakes, like there was a little bit of a mistake around there, fix it before you pop it in the oven. And then I will put these into the oven for a full hour at Primo's recommended temperature, and I'll take all the metal out of the oven. I'll bake them on a ceramic tile with this placed on top, and I will then tent them with another piece of plain printing paper, and I will bake them for a full hour, and they should come out properly baked. They should be slightly flexible. If you bend them, they shouldn't snap unless you bend them way too much. Like if you try to bend them in half, they will snap a bit, but if you try to bend them a little bit, they should feel like really hard plastic rather than a potato chip. Okay, so I'll pop these in the oven, and then when we're done we can move on to assembly. Okay, so our pieces are out of the oven, and now another thing that I did was just to make sure that it was completely flat, was I put them on a piece of paper on a ceramic tile, put another piece of paper over the top, and then I actually put another ceramic tile over the top of them, and this actually will press the back down onto the paper so that it has now a perfectly flat finish. None of them have any ill effects from the paper, because sometimes that can cause them to be a little bit ripply. So if you want them completely flat, that is something that you could definitely do. Now what we want to do is, I just wanted to show you these now that they're baked. They look quite cool, kind of grungy. But these we're not going to worry about just yet. What we want to do is we want to scratch the top of these. And what you will use is a piece of 40 grit sandpaper. So really coarse. I usually use a 400, this is actually a 40, so it's quite coarse. And what I want to do is I want to keep my hands out of the way when I do this. Oops. I just want to be scratching across the surface. And actually what I think would work better is if I grab this and I just drag my bead across it, like so. I'm just trying to get this one area down here, and then I'll drag it across in the opposite direction, just so that it looks like that, so it's got that kind of grungy, denim-y look, and you can see it pulls out just a touch of red. Okay, and you'll do the same with this one. You'll run it across one way. I'll just try and get some areas that I missed, and then pull it across in the opposite direction to get that somewhat grungy look. There we go. Okay, so those two are done, and now we're going to do the same with the alcoholing. Drag it across one way, and you might need to do that a little bit more for this one. There we go. And then I'm going to drag it across in the other way. So we just get a very slight scratched up look. And then in the opposite direction. There we go. Now we'll move that and get rid of all of these little bits and pieces. And it's just supposed to be a very subtle texture. So let me just bring these over. So that's somewhat how it is going to look. And you can see this is very subtle, but the main focus is supposed to be on the cool crackle technique, with this just as a bit of a highlight. And the same with this one. The focus is supposed to be on the cogs down here, but this one gives kind of an interesting look at the top. So now what we want to do is we want to just gently sand these, because we want to also do a little smear along the sides. And I'll show you how to do that in a minute, but first we want to sand them. And the way you will do that is with polishing papers. So let me just grab those. And all you're going to do is you're just going to gently drag your piece along the edge just to smooth out the side. We're not doing an official sand yet. We're just trying to remove any overhanging pieces of clay so it's smooth when you run your hand along the edge. And that should be all that you need. And you'll do that with every single other piece. And then you will also grab a piece of black Primo, roll it in your hands so that you're warming it up. It needs to be as soft as you can get it. If you don't have very soft Primo, you can go and mix it with some liquid clay to soften it up. This is even a case where you can use Sculpey 3 if you have any. Personally, I still prefer using the Polymer because it gives a glossier finish, whereas the Sculpey 3 gives kind of a matte finish, even once sanded. So if you can use Polymer, if it's not soft enough for you, just mix it with some liquid clay. I find that warming it up is enough. So you can see it's nice and squishy. So then I'll roll that into a tube, press that along the side, and then press hard so that I'm dragging it along and just leaving like a smear of residue along the edge. And what this is going to do is it's just going to give it a little bit of a better appearance. It's going to give it a more finished off look. Especially for those black pieces, it will highlight them slightly. Okay, almost done. So I want to show you how to do it completely. And then you might need to mess with it a little bit because the clay can be a little bit fiddly. It's like over here, it doesn't want to stick, so you can just press it down. And you want to keep your hands clean. That definitely does help. And on the corners you want to just press it down and then work it like so. And then go around and just make sure that you cover all of those areas. Like there's another little corner piece there that's not covered. Take another piece of clay and just kind of squeeze it on and smooth it out. There we go, you can see it, that's nicely covered. And then I'll smooth along the edges because we want to be getting rid of fingerprints and such. And also smooth away any bits that are overhanging, you don't want that. There we go. Okay, and so that is what you'll do with each piece. So instead of them having this kind of light brown edge, I like to give them this black border just to give it a little bit more drama. And I'll do that with every single one of my pieces, and then when I'm done doing that, I'll bake it in the oven for maybe about half an hour just to set it up, and then we will assemble them and then bake them for another hour. Okay, so now we are going to move on to assembling our pieces. So I'm just going to grab some translucent liquid clay. I'm just going to put that on the back here, and I don't need too much. That should be enough for two actually. I'm just going to take that and dab it onto this one, then I'll get to that one in a minute. And then for this one, I'm just going to kind of smear it along the back. Now I just want it about halfway because half of this is going to be hanging over the edge. Okay, I just want to work out where that liquid clay is. Okay, and then I'm going to just gently slide it on into the right position. And then stick, and that should be enough. And because both of these pieces have been baked, you should be able to slide this around and make sure that it's in the right position, make sure that it's all symmetrical, and then you would then pop that in the oven. And we'll do the same for this one. Just gently smooth the liquid clay along the back. And then stick it down, and then move it around as necessary to get it to sit in the right position. And you want the two to look almost basically the exact same. So just have them next to each other and make sure that they look basically the same. And then you'll have those two sitting together. Okay, and then we have these two. And so I'll go pop them all in the oven for about another hour just to make sure that those side pieces are baked and so that the liquid clay is baked too. Okay, so these are out of the oven and we are now ready to start assembling our pieces. And so what I want to do is I want to just give them a drill. And so and we will sand the backs and stuff in just a minute, but I want to drill them first. So I'm just going to be using a pin drill. I'm going to grab the top there. And I'm drilling from the back because if you were to drill from the front, so let me show you, if you were to try and drill from the front, it would bend over. So you want to drill from the back. It'll be a lot easier. And then we'll just drill straight through. And then just place your finger here and just be careful because you should feel the drill coming through. And then once you do, remove your finger before it comes through and drill through the other way for a cleaner finish. And there's your hole. Okay, and then we'll grab the next one. And I need to drill a hole on each side for this one. And so it's basically the same process. You drill from one side, place your finger, carry on drilling until you feel the drill coming through, and drill from the opposite side. And I would repeat this for all of my other earrings. And just line this up. And I'm going to drill another hole here. Okay, and then I'll show you how I would drill the other ones in just a minute. And my beads are probably around 2.5 millimeters thick to 3 millimeters thick. I wouldn't make them any thicker than that because we want to be able to put jump rings through here. And if your clay is a little too thick, you can have a little bit of trouble when it comes to that. There we go. Okay, so that's our one earring. And so that will link together just like that. So I would repeat these ones here. And then for these ones, I would drill at the top of each of these. And then for these ones, I would drill at the top and the bottom for each of them. Okay, so now that I've drilled them, we want to put a layer of Renaissance wax on them just to shine them up. So here's the Renaissance wax. I'm just going to open that up. I've just got a little bit of tissue over here. And I'm just going to brush that on the surface, and all it's going to do is, first off, it will seal in any pastel or alcohol ink, and it's also going to just bring out a bit of a shine. Now I don't want to sand the front, I only want to sand the back and the sides as well, probably. There we go. Then I'm just going to use my buffing wheel, and this is the model that I use, and I'll just switch that on. I want to just get a good grip of this first, and then I'll switch it on. There we are, and that's all that is needed. So now we've just got a very slight sheen to it, and it will have sealed things in. It will also have shined up those edges. And so then we are going to move on to sanding our back. But first I'm going to buff all of these. Okay, so now that I've buffed them all, we want to just quickly sand the back, which needs quite a bit of a sand. We'll just grab some 400 grit sandpaper, or a polishing paper, which is what I have, and just vigorously sand the back. And you'll see that it's starting to clean up. You might need to sand a little bit more just to get rid of those final little bits and pieces. There we are, and it's nice and clean. And I've done that with all of them. Now I'm just going to rebuff them on the backs too, and then we can move on to assembling them. There we go, so you should have a nice sheen on the front, sides, and then kind of a matte but soft finish on the back. Okay, so for the next bit you're going to need some jump rings, and fairly large ones, like that. And we'll just grab this, and I'm going to grab my pliers, open this up, should slide through. So I'll grab my other connecting piece, that should slide through too. Close up, and then just slide that back into your hole. Okay, and then we'll grab another one. And an ear wire, and close that up, slide that back into the hole, and there is our first earring. And so you would repeat that with this one. And then for the other one, it is basically the exact same. Open the jump ring, slide it through your two connecting pieces. And this is why I say that you don't want it too thick, because a jump ring can cause a little bit of trouble if your piece is too thick. So I want it to go over 3mm thick. Another ear wire, slide that on, and just pop that seam back into the hole, and there is our other earring. So I'll just go quickly finish off the other two. Okay, and here is how they look now that they are finished. So I definitely would say that this is my preferred design, but I do like both of them. So hopefully this tutorial was helpful to you, and if it was, please do let me know in the comments. And remember, all of the elements in this tutorial can be changed with different colors, different texture sheets, and you can mix and match all sorts of things in this tutorial. So feel free to experiment around and see what you can come up with. And as always, I'll see you in the next tutorial. Bye for now.